It's hard to ignore the feeling right now. Something in NASCAR just feels like it's about to shift in a big way. Not because of one single headline, but because of two major storylines happening at the same time. And the interesting part, they're connected in a way that could really shape what we see on track in the coming weeks. On one side, there's a quiet but important change happening behind the scenes, something that could completely alter how drivers attack one of the toughest tracks on the calendar. It's an issue that's been frustrating teams and fans alike, and now it finally looks like a solution might be on the table. On the other side, there's this unexpected pause in the schedule. It feels unusual, almost like everything is slowed down right before something huge is about to happen. Because what's coming next isn't just another race, it could be one of the defining moments of the early season. If you've followed NASCAR for a while, you already know these are the turning points, the kind that end up shaping championships and rewriting narratives. Now, before we dive deeper, if you enjoy this kind of real racing talk, go ahead and hit like and subscribe. The goal is 1,000 subscribers, and this is all about fans who truly live and breathe NASCAR. All right, let's get into the first big story, because this one could seriously impact what we see at Bristol Motor Speedway. NASCAR, along with Goodyear, is making a key tire adjustment for the upcoming Food City 500, and if you've been watching Bristol races recently, you already understand why this is such a big deal. The main problem has been tire wear, and not in a good way. Instead of gradual fall-off that creates strategy and excitement, we've seen tires break down unpredictably. In some races, they've literally torn apart, with chunks flying off, especially in colder conditions. A lot of that comes from the mix of low temperatures and Bristol's concrete surface. Rather than the rubber settling into the track and forming those classic dark grooves, it's been coming apart instead. That's the exact opposite of what NASCAR and Goodyear want. Ideally, the rubber should slowly build up, creating multiple racing lanes and giving drivers more options. That's what leads to better competition and more exciting battles on track. Here's where things take an interesting turn. Goodyear ran a tire test back in November, and it provided a huge amount of data. According to Justin Fantasy, Goodyear's director of racing for the Americas, the goal is to design a tire that doesn't rely so heavily on temperature to lay rubber down, something that could make a massive difference when race day comes. For the first time this season, the NASCAR Cup Series is actually stepping away for Easter weekend, and honestly, it feels a little strange. Since February, it's been full throttle every Sunday, and now suddenly, silence. No Cup race, just a rare pause in the action. It's not like racing completely stopped. The O'Reilly Auto Parts Series and the Craftsman Truck Series still hit the track at Rockingham, giving dedicated fans something to watch. But let's be real, when there's no Cup race, it just doesn't feel the same. What makes this break even more interesting is when it's happening. It comes right after a strong and exciting stretch of racing. We just watched Chase Elliott put on a performance at Martinsville Speedway, pulling away from Denny Hamlin on March 29th to take the Cookout 400. That was a statement win on a short track. At the same time, Tyler Reddick has been on an absolute tear this season. He's leading the point standings by a clear margin and stacking wins. Daytona 500, back-to-back victories at Atlanta Motor Speedway, and another at Circuit of the Americas. That's not just consistency, that's dominance. So, heading into this break, the sport is full of energy, big storylines, rising rivalries, and serious momentum, and then everything just hits pause. But this isn't some random gap in the schedule. It feels more like a setup. Because when the Cup Series returns, it's heading straight into one of the most important races of the early season, the Food City 500 at Bristol on April 12th, airing at 2 p.m. on FS1. And this race isn't just another stop, it's bringing major changes. Along with the new tire, teams will also deal with an increased horsepower package. That combination has everyone in the garage paying close attention. Bristol is already one of the most demanding tracks in motorsports. Tight corners, steep banking, and zero margin for error. Now add more power and a tire that could completely change how the surface behaves over a long run, and you've got the perfect setup for something wild. It could be chaos, brilliance, or a mix of both. And it doesn't stop there. The schedule coming up is packed. After Bristol, it's the Advent Health 400 at Kansas Speedway on April 19th, followed by the unpredictable madness of Talladega on April 26th. Then comes the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte, one of the toughest endurance races of the season. There are even unique events on the horizon, like the race at Naval Base Coronado in San Diego on June 21st, adding a different kind of flavor to the schedule. And of course, everything builds toward the championship showdown at Homestead Miami Speedway on November 8th. So, this Easter break, it's not just downtime, it's a reset. A deep breath before a massive run of races that could shape the entire 2026 NASCAR season. And honestly, as a fan, this is exactly the kind of moment you don't ignore. Everything is lining up at once: a new tire, a new performance package, a driver like Tyler Reddick on a hot streak, and Chase Elliott carrying fresh momentum. And now all of that is about to come together at Bristol. That's why this race feels different. That's why it's one you mark on the calendar, because there's a real chance we look back at the Food City 500 and say that's where the season shifted. But now I'm curious, what do you think is going to happen at Bristol? Did Goodyear finally get the tire right, or are we walking into another unpredictable race? Drop your thoughts and let's talk about it, because this is one of those situations that only makes full sense once the checkered flag falls. Personally, I like the direction NASCAR and Goodyear are taking. Instead of ignoring the tire issues, they're actually trying to fix them, and that matters because Bristol is too important of a track to have races decided by tires failing in the wrong way. Fans want strategy, we want tire fall-off, but it needs to feel natural. It should reward drivers who manage their equipment smartly, not create random chaos. At the same time, there's always that bit of uncertainty. Every time we hear about a better tire or an improved package, the big question remains, did they truly find the right balance, or are we about to see something completely unexpected? And when you add the increased horsepower into the mix, that's where things really get interesting. More power at Bristol means more throttle control, higher risk, and a lot more pressure on the driver. Now combine that with a tire that might behave differently over long runs, and suddenly this race becomes all about adaptability. That's why this one could separate the field in a big way. Drivers like Tyler Reddick, who are already in rhythm, could use this moment to extend their dominance. But then you've got veterans like Denny Hamlin and someone like Chase Elliott coming off a huge win. They know how to read a track as it evolves lap by lap. That experience could be the deciding factor when it matters most. In the end, this race isn't just about speed, it's about who figures things out the fastest. And that's exactly what makes Bristol must-watch. And you really can't overlook the timing here. Coming right after the Easter break, this is the kind of race where some teams show up dialed in, while others take a few laps too long to find their rhythm. That reset can work in your favor, or completely throw you off. And at a track like Bristol, there's no room to ease into it. You don't get time to adjust slowly. From the moment the green flag drops, everything has to be right. That's why this weekend feels so important. Setup, tire management, track position, and pure driver instinct, it all has to come together. There's no hiding at Bristol. If Goodyear nailed this tire, we could be in for one of the best races this track has delivered in years. But if they miss the mark, then we might be having a completely different conversation once it's over. Either way, this is the kind of race you watch from start to finish. Every lap matters. And if you enjoy real NASCAR discussions like this, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to NASCAR Nation Report.